Hi everyone, I'm Nadia, and in today's video, my mom is going to be making a stunning resin beach table. This is a simple way to achieve a beautiful beach effect without having to worry about waves or lacing in your resin. This is inspired by a beach that we love to go to here in Croatia, and the water is so calm, it really does look just like this table. She's using a table where the base can be removed, and it also has a lip, which is very convenient to pour resin into. She starts off by taking a collection of pebbles from the beach and placing it onto the base. She's making sure that they're spread out evenly. Once she has her pebbles all laid out, she takes her collection of some driftwood and some shells and plays around with the placements. I'll have all the products that you see in this video listed in my description, so don't forget to check that out if you want to give this tutorial a try. These are all items that she's collected at the beach, but if you don't live near a beach, these items can also be purchased. For the majority of her items, she's making sure that they're not too tall so that they can be completely covered in resin and so that table surface is nice and smooth. However, she is placing a larger shell or two to bulge out of the resin, but this is placed near the edge of the table so that it's not an inconvenience. She's paying a lot of attention to detail here and moves around some shells until she's completely happy with their placement. She's also adding in some different colored pebbles and some sea glass for a nice variety. Once the layout is looking good, she starts to mix in her resin. In this video, she'll be using craft resin, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio by volume. So to easily measure her resin, she pours the part A into a small cup and an equal amount of the B into another cup, and then pours the two into a larger cup to mix together. And she scrapes out every last drop from the cups. And she mixes that in well for about 5 minutes. I'll have a discount code in my description for craft resin if you want to give them a try. She's using an alcohol ink in the shade Emerald Green, and she adds 3 drops into her cup of resin. She'll be doing this in a few layers, and this first layer is mainly just to set everything into place. So she added a very small amount of pigment because she'll be adding in more in the next layer. She mixes that all together and then separates her resin into smaller cups so that it's easier to pour out of. One of these cups has some leftover dried blue resin, so the resin here is appearing a lot darker than it actually is. After repotting your resin, it's always a good idea to give it another mix because there's a possibility while it was being mixed in that first cup that areas could have gotten missed. She starts to slowly pour in her resin. Mixing your resin slowly and also pouring your resin slowly can help to minimize air bubbles. And she needs a little bit more to be able to cover the whole surface, so she mixes in her resin once more. Since she has less resin this time, she adds just 1 drop of the emerald green alcohol ink. Then she decided to switch out these sea urchin shells. Some of them can become darker than others after being coated with resin. She accidentally got a little bit of resin on the edge of her table, but to easily remove that, you can use an alcohol wipe and nothing will remain. She continues to carefully pour in her resin, making sure that it's getting into every little crevice. Now she's going in with a torch gun to pop any air bubbles. You'll always want to be careful while using a torch gun and make sure that you're moving it quickly so that you don't burn your resin. Craft resin has a work time of about 45 minutes, so after mixing you have that much time to make adjustments to your piece. So my mom here is making a few tweaks, but you'll always want to check the work time on your resin bottle to be sure. She allows this layer of resin to harden and comes back the next day. She mixes in her resin once more. It's very important to make sure that you're mixing your resin thoroughly, otherwise it could cause issues in the hardening and curing process. Typically, resin needs to be mixed for around 3 to 5 minutes, but it's always better to overmix than undermix. Most of the time you'll be able to tell if your resin is mixed well enough if you're no longer able to see any streaks in your resin. Now she separates it into smaller cups where she'll be adding in her pigments. Again, this one cup has some hardened blue resin onto it, so the color can be a little deceiving. She starts off by adding 1 drop of the emerald green alcohol ink into each cup. Then she takes Piñata's alcohol ink in the shade Baja Blue. She shakes it well before adding a couple of drops into a 3rd cup, which my mom has hidden from the camera, and she adds 1 drop into her 2nd cup. So she has 3 cups of resin, which are going from a darker blue to a lighter blue, and she mixes that in all well. She takes her cup of resin, which is lightly pigmented, and starts to pour it near the top. She takes her next cup and pours it near the center. She takes her 3rd cup of resin and starts to pour near the bottom, which is the bottom for her but top for us, and she has some more clear resin, which she'll be adding in more alcohol ink to make this area more pigmented. She's using a silicone mixing stick to help push around the resin and to make sure that it's covering some of these larger shells and pebbles. She adds more of the Baja Blue alcohol ink into this cup of resin and then pours it into the bottom. She mixes in a little bit more resin and is using all of the same pigments, and this way after this layer she'll just have 1 more layer to go. And again she uses a torch gun to get rid of any air bubbles and achieve a flawless finish. She uses a thin wooden stick to pick out any dust particles that have gotten into the resin. And these sea urchin shells do have a little hole at the top, so she's making sure that they're completely filled with resin. Before she leaves for this layer of resin to harden, she makes sure to cover it with something so that no dust particles or fibers or little hairs will fly into the resin while it's hardening. She comes back the next day and just look how beautiful it's looking in the sunlight. If you're enjoying this video, please be sure to let me know by leaving a thumbs up or a comment below. And if you'd like to help support our channel and our creations, you can become a channel member and receive access to early videos. And she's mixing in her resin one last time to add a top coat. And she's slowly pouring on her resin. So this layer will remain clear and provides a layer of protection from your pigmented resins, seals everything all together, and provides a little more depth to your piece. Craft resin works great as a top coat because it has a high heat and scratch resistance. This top coat will also provide a nice and shiny finish, and in my opinion is really what pulls everything together. Whether it's a table, a tray, or a coaster set, it's that extra final touch which goes a long way. She also takes a wooden stick and is just dragging it along the edges to make sure that the resin has reached those areas. In this last layer, it's really important to make sure that no air bubbles will pop up and ruin that smooth surface. So she goes in with a torch gun, which is a really easy way to pop any of those air bubbles. And again, she covers it to harden. And here's the final product. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. Follow me on my Instagram, Summer Girl Designs, and my mom's Instagram, Wild Heart Resin Art.